Alright, you factored trinomials, the easy ones, and now it's time for you to factor the more difficult trinomials, the ones that are in the form ax² plus bx plus c. An example would be like 4x² plus 2x minus 6. And you're going to do this using the same method. But before we get started, set up your Cornell note paper. This is lesson 8.6, and I'm taking the time to go a little slower so you have time to get this set up. We've kind of slacked off on the notes, but I want to try to get you to get back to taking Cornell notes. Your essential question: how do you factor trinomials of the form ax² plus bx plus c? And I have 5 examples. They're just 5 of the same type of problems so that you get the hang of it. And here we go. The first example is 3x² plus 16x plus 5. You're going to set up your tic-tac-toe board or your table. The procedure is exactly the same. You're going to want the first 2 boxes to give you 3x². You want the middle row to equal the last term, which is 5. And then once you cross multiply, you want the bottom one to be 16x. You want them to add together to give you 16x. So in this example, getting 3x² is pretty simple because there's only 2 ways to get it: 1 times 3 or 3 times 1. So I'm going to write 3x times 1x. And there's only really 2 ways to get 5, and that's 1 times 5 or 5 times 1. Now, as we talked about before, you won't always get the right answer the first time. You just have to try it, and if it works, great. If it doesn't, erase it and try again. But the more you practice these, the more you'll be able to see a pattern and be able to put them in the right spot the first time. So I'm going to start with 1 times 5. 1 times 5 is 5. 3x times 1x is 3x². Those work. Now you have to check to make sure that the bottom row is correct. And you do that by cross multiplying. 1 times 1x is 1x. 3x times 5 is 15x. And when you add those together, do you get 16x? You do. And so your answer is found in each column. So the answer to this trinomial factored into 2 binomials is 3x plus 1 times x plus 5, or 1x plus 5. Here's a common mistake. People will do the whole table correctly, and when they write their answer, instead of writing the column, some people will write this as their answer. And they'll end up getting 3x plus 5 and x plus 1. And as you can see, those two are not the same thing. That's not correct. So make sure when you're writing your answer, you're not doing the cross products, but you're writing the columns. Okay, next example. 10q² plus 9q plus 2. So preload the last column. You're going to write 10q² for the first one, 2 for the second one, and 9q for the bottom one. Now the easiest number up here between 10, 2, and 9 is 2. So I'm just going to write in 1 and 2, because the only way to get 2 is to multiply 1 times 2. Now, you can get 10 by multiplying 1 times 10, or 2 times 5, or 5 times 2, or 10 times 1. There are 4 possibilities because the order now makes a difference. 1 times 10 is not the same as 10 times 1. So I'm going to try 2 times 5 first. So 2q times 5q is 10q². 1 times 2 is 2, and now I check the cross products. 2q times 2 is 4q, and 1 times 5q is 5q. 5q plus 4q is 9q. I got it right on the first try. So the answer, again, it's the columns, is 2q plus 1 times 5q plus 2. Next example. 4w squared plus 4w minus 3. So I'm going to write in the last column, and then I'm going to ask you to hit the pause button so that you can try this on your own. Okay, to get 4w, you can do 1 times 4, 4 times 1, 2 times 2. So I'm just going to start with 2w times 2w just to try it. I don't know the answer to this, so I'm going to work this through like you would work it through. To get negative 3, I need one that's positive and one that's negative. Now the trick is, since the last term is positive, then the bigger number between the positive and the negative should be positive. So I'm going to put 3 here and negative 1 here and just try it. And when I cross multiply, 3 times 2 is 6w, 2 times negative 1 is negative 2w, and when I add them together, 6w and negative 2w, I get positive 4w, so it worked. So the answer is 2w plus 3 and 2w minus 1. Okay, fourth problem. Again, I suggest that you preload the last column, 4d squared, that's the first term. Last term is negative 35. Middle term is negative 4d. And you might want to hit the pause button now and try it by yourself, and then resume when you're ready to see the solution. Okay, 4d squared could be 1 times 4, could be 2 times 2, 4 times 1. Again, I'm going to start with 2d times 2d. Negative 35, the only way you can get that is with 1 positive and 1 negative. And because this last term is negative, I want my bigger number to be negative. So I'm going to try 7 and 5. That's negative 7, positive 5. Cross multiply, I get 10d. 2 times negative 7 is negative 14d. And when I add these together, 10d and negative 14d, I get negative 4d. So it worked again. So my answer is 2d, this column right here, plus 5, and this column right here, times 2d minus 7. Last example, 8v squared plus 34v minus 30. I'm going to put in the terms 8v squared, negative 30, and 34v. Now this one's a little tougher because the way you can get 8, there's more ways. And 30, you can do 1 times 30, 2 times 15, 3 times 10, 5 times 6, 6 times 5, 10 times 3, 15 times 2. So there's a whole bunch of combinations that you have to check. So I'm going to start with 8v squared. Let's just try 2v times 4v. Negative 30, that's a negative number, so one has to be positive and one has to be negative. And who knows, it could be the other way around. I don't know yet. The last term is positive, so you know the bigger number has to be positive. So let's just try 6 and 5. Negative 6 times positive 5 is negative 30. So when I multiply, 4 times negative 6 is negative 24. And 5 times 2 is 10. But negative 24 plus 10 is negative 14. So that doesn't work. So we'll try something else. How about 10 times 3? And one of them has to be positive and one has to be negative. So I'm going to make the negative smaller and the positive bigger. And if I cross multiply, 10 times 4 is positive 40v, and negative 3 times 2 is negative 6v. 40v plus negative 6v is positive 34. And that's my answer. Now, if you had done this by yourself, it may have taken you several tries. And again, the more you do these problems, you're going to see patterns and you're going to see where numbers are going to have to go. But it takes a lot of practice. So the answer is 2v plus 10 and 4v minus 3. Alright, that's factoring using the form ax2+bx+c. Here's the assignment. If you choose to get started early, before you do that though, you may want to go back, and if you got lost on any of these problems, especially this last one, put a big question mark next to it. Go back through, and since you're using Cornell notes, go in and write questions off to the left-hand side, and then write a summary at the end. Okay, come to class with questions and we'll see you tomorrow.